Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are glad to have you with us today on this webinar, Harvesting Funding, Mastering the Art of Finding, Writing, and Being Awarded Agricultural Grants. I'm your moderator, Jenny Alton from the New York Small Business Development Center Central Office. This webinar is brought to you by the Niagara SBDC, a regional center of the NYSBDC. The NYSBDC is a U.S. Small Business Administration resource partner with regional centers at higher education institutions and outreach offices at other locations across New York State. Our free advising, education, research, and advocacy services are made possible by funding from the SBA, New York State, and our host campuses. I am excited to introduce your presenter. We have Bree Bacon, who is a fantastic advisor from the Niagara Center and also the Agriculture Committee Chair for the NYSBDC. You'll also see on your screen right now Maureen Henderson, the Niagara SBDC Regional Center Director. So you know, we are recording today. We plan to share a link to the recording and a PDF of the slides in a follow-up email. Attendees are muted and will not appear on camera. Your chats will be visible to me, Bree, and Maureen. If you have any questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate to type them in the Q&A box as they come up. You can open Zoom's Q&A box from the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window, and we will try to address these questions throughout the presentation. That's all of my housekeeping items, and so now I will turn the time over to Bree.
Thanks, Jenny. Hello, everyone. All right, I'm so excited to be here with you to talk about this topic of harvesting funding. So finding those grants and loans that are going to be right for your farm or agribusiness. And because this is really one of the most requested topics that we advisors get here at SBDC. So I talk to farmers and farmer friends and clients about this pretty much all the time. So we really try to keep track of this, and I just am really thrilled to be able to share this information with you all today. So welcome. We'll get started. So hold on, let me just. All right, Jenny gave a great introduction to Small Business Development Center. I just wanted to show you what our state website looks like, and this is our website address right here, nysbdc.org. Like Jenny said, we are a free, confidential advising program. We're open to all New Yorkers, and we specialize in helping small businesses. So that's any business with less than 500 employees. We are statewide. We have over 70 offices across the state. So there's definitely going to be one near you, no matter where you are in the state. SBDC helps about 15,000 clients a year across the state. And we help them with writing business plans, marketing plans, doing financial projections, accessing that loan funding, getting up and started with their business. For agriculture, we definitely help with grant preparation for ag, because agriculture industry has more grant opportunities than most other industries. So we're kind of an anomaly in that. We help you with navigating regulations, knowing what is out there for regulations. We help with growth strategies as well, and capitalizing, getting the access to funding for that growth. We support new farmers. We get a lot of inquiries of people that want to start a farm that have not owned their own farm before. So we can help support that. And like I said, financial management systems, income and cash flow projections, financial enterprise analysis. I do that. Pricing, we help a lot with pricing products. So that's what we help support our farm and agriculture clients with. And it's no cost advising and no or low cost training, and it's entirely confidential. So just a little bit about us there for you. And all right, and this is a little bit about me. My name is Bree Bacon, and I have been an advisor here for almost 10 years, coming up on 10 years in November at the Niagara Small Business Development Center. And a few years ago, I started the agriculture committee for our statewide network of offices. We have about 120 advisors across the state. And a few of us are specialized in agriculture. We either have a background in agriculture, grew up on a family farm, or married into one, or we just tend to see a lot of agriculture clients because of where that advisor is in the state. So we decided to put all of our heads together and be able to best support agriculture clients with a committee across the state. So I chair that committee, and I am also part of the national committee for rural and agriculture working group for America's SBDC. So that is our network of all of our statewide SBDC. So we're really active in that. So if we can't find the answer to something or the best resource or information in our state, then we can definitely tap into that nationwide resource. And that is something that is unique for SBDCs and is a huge, powerful tool in our clients' toolkit that they can access. So that's in addition to the support organizations that also work with agriculture, like your extension office, New York FarmNet. So you can really take advantage of all of these resources that are available to help farmers and agribusinesses in our state. I am also a co-owner of a farm. My husband and I run a diversified vegetable, fruit, and flower farm in Niagara County. And we've been doing that for 14 years. And I grew up on a farm in Arizona. So it's a citrus farm. We don't have citrus here in New York State, but I did grow up on a farm as well. So I really enjoy agriculture. I understand it. I understand the joys and challenges of working in agriculture. Also the joys and challenges of working with your partner if you are farming with your spouse. I understand that. And then I'm a member of several agricultural organizations as well. So I'm a member of our local Cornell Extension, a member of our advocacy group, the New York Farm Bureau, Northeast Organic Farming Association, and our farm is certified naturally grown, so I'm a member of that as well. And I'm a 4-H mom. My kids are into poultry and rabbits, so shout out to anybody who is getting ready for fairs coming up soon this summer, or already starting if you're in rabbits. So that's a little bit about me. And let's see, we can go on to the next. So we're going to just dive into this. The first question is really, why are grants so important for agriculture? Like I had mentioned, agriculture tends to get more grants available to farms and agribusinesses than in other industries. And grants are really the number one question that we get asked by new clients, I'd say, is what about grants for small businesses? And so there's a lot of mythology around grants for small businesses, and we usually have to help people reframe that and understanding the reality that there's really no grants available to small businesses, but there are but that the major exception would be for agriculture. There tend to be more. And that is because agriculture is so valuable to our society, right? No farms, no food. So grants tend to support um, parts of the agricultural economy and the food access in our society that 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 our economy doesn't necessarily support. So they would support things like development of the industry and our workforce, our agricultural workforce. They would support the local and regional food systems that we have. Our grants support research. So anything from trialing new methods and new ideas to innovation, trying to support innovation on our farms and agribusinesses, and energy efficiency. So upgrading any energy using equipment, machinery to things that are more energy efficient or sustainable. Grants tend to support education and training of owners, anyone looking to do succession of a farm, right? So new owners and workforce as well. Agriculture used to be a huge um, employer in our country, and now it's down to about 2% of our population works on farms. So it's really highly specialized and really requires some skilled labor in order to keep those farms running and those agribusinesses running. So continual education and training is really important. Job creation is another place, and workforce development is another place where grants tend to support that in our agriculture so that we can keep people in farming so we can have enough to farm. The age of the average age of the farmer in New York State is gone up a whole year since the last census. So we're at 58. I think it's 58 and a half now is the average age of New York State farmer. So really getting that next generation to come in and start farms or take farms over. And then resource sustainability. Farms and agribusinesses take up about 23% of our land in New York State. So caring for and stewarding that resource of our lands, our forests, and our agricultural lands that are in production and conserving those is really important part of the grant ecosystem. That's usually done through that. So that's why grants are important in agriculture. There are a few things that grants don't support. And grants tend to not support typical startup costs. Those are considered typical costs and would be supported by either owner investment or a commercial loan or a loan from farm service agency. But grants tend to not support the typical startup costs. Typical operating expenses is a thing that grants tend to not support. So they're not going to be used to just run the farm. So that you got to be really careful about that and make sure that your farm, it is a for-profit business. So the income from the farm needs to be able to cover the operations of the farm, or they can be funded through other ways, like I said, owner investment or a loan. Prior debt. This is another one. This is big. So any grant will not be able to be used to pay back any debt that the farm is in. So debt is considered a separate type of expense and can't be used as a grant.
We do have a question.
Oh
What
yeah.
about something like creating a parking area? Is that something that might fall under grants or not?
That's a great question, and really specific. So, it depends, and I gotta say, it depends on the grant. So grants are usually for very specific parts of your farm or your farm project, right? Um, and by and large, they tend to support anything around production. So anything that's going on in the field or the barn, or anything that is post-harvest. So anything that's going on post-harvest. They don't tend to support anything that is agritourism related. Um, that might be changing, but for right now, agritourism is such a new subsector of agriculture, and it's not directly related to production. So I haven't seen many things that are covering that. Um, but there could be non-agriculture grants. So if your county has any type of program for facades or improving the appearance of a business or property, then that might be something to consider for parking lots, and specifically. But you might be looking at grant opportunities that would help support another part of the business that would free up your cash, that you could then, your own owner cash, that then you could put towards, building a parking lot that wouldn't typically be covered by a grant. So you can then divert your own cash into that investment.
We have one more
Yeah,
question as well
sure.
about putting up pasture fencing or water sourcing in pastures.
Great question. Great question. Let me skip to the next slide actually, because I can talk about that. Yeah, fencing and water, which are both production related. So hold that thought, whoever had that question, because we can get there. I just have one more note to say about this slide here. So, like I said, grants are not going to support, generally, they're not going to support these things. And I just want to make a point to be wary of any grant that seems too good to be true, or anything that requires you to pay for access. So the grants that are out there are not going to require you to pay for them. There's no application fee, and it would be free to apply. So sometimes we have clients that come to us and they say that they've paid for something, and that is always raising that red flags. I'm like, wait, what? No, because these grant organizations are not in the business of making money off of the grants, right? They are tasked with administering the grants. So double check with your advisor, or your mentor or somebody. Double check with something before you sign up for anything that is going to search for grants or find you grants for farming, because there's definitely some of those types of businesses out there. Okay, hold on. Now, okay, where to find grants. So back to your question about fencing and water sources. So where do we find all of these, grant opportunities? We just had a huge cycle of grants that ended. You might be aware of them that just ended. And there are some that are annual. They go on a rolling basis annually. And where do we find them? The number one place is the US Department of Agriculture. So that's the USDA. The USDA is a huge federal program in terms of all of the diversity of programs that it offers. It has the Farm Service Agency, or the FSA, which is a lender to agricultural producers. It's a lender of first opportunity is what it's called. So those that it would be specifically for agricultural producers who might not be eligible for commercial lending. They can go to the USDA Farm Service Agency and look into loans through that. The USDA also has a number of other departments, the Rural Development Department and the Risk Management Agency and the Natural Resources and Conservation Service, or NRCS, is another department of the USDA. NRCS has, they have offices in most counties, and you can also go on to the USDA website. You can go to New York State and you can find the NRCS office that's nearest to you. Then that NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service, helps farms with conserving their resources on their farm. A lot of them work hand in hand with the county soil and water departments because, yep, it makes sense. Soil, water, farm, you get it. So a lot of them will work hand in hand with soil and water, and they have a number of programs that address the issues that you're talking about. Fencing, water access, that you might have heard of a program called EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentive Program. Remembered that off the top of my head. That helps with high tunnels. So you might see that high tunnels through grants. That helps with high tunnels on farms that that are looking for season extension and conserving land. So, so going to your nearest NRCS office, and you would need to register with a county farm ID with USDA, and then you can sit down and talk to them about your specific needs for your farm in terms of fencing and water access. So USDA has a bunch of different programs, like I said, a bunch of different departments, but the NRCS is one of them that works. They all work at the local level. So you would be meeting with a local representative, either at your county office or your regional office, depending, and they would be able to sit down with you and listen to what your specific needs are and see if there's a program that matches those. So hopefully that helped answer your question. And it was perfect introduction to where to find grants. So
A follow-up question to that then. So would things like hedgerows, land management habitat also fall into that same NRCS?
NRCS. Yeah, so that would probably be a most likely place to start for things like hedgerows, and because it has to do with land conservation and natural resource conservation. Absolutely. So you would go to your local USDA office. You would need to acquire a farm ID, which basically just means that you're in their system. And then you can go ahead and talk to your NRCS. There's a lot of changes. And so I cannot say, I think it would be best to speak to your NRCS agent directly to find out what's open, what's available, and and what would best fit your farm. So don't be too disappointed if there's nothing right now, but they would be the best people to tell you, if there's anything coming down the pike.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to
So,
hold this next question for now. We'll
okay.
get to it in a few. So go ahead.
I love all the questions. Thank you so much. I like questions, making sure that we're all on the same page. So the next place to look to find grants is the New York State has a Department of Agriculture and Markets. And that is the department that both does the regulation and the compliance for farms and agribusinesses, and also the support programs as well. And there are a number of them. So this would be where you would, you go to register for any permits that you have that you might need for your farm business, and also to look for funding opportunities. because they sometimes have funding opportunities that are available to farms. So each of these programs that I've mentioned so far, they have email newsletters that go out. So you can easily sign up for your email newsletters. Be prepared to be inundated. Usually they're monthly or bi-weekly. And there's going to be information in there about any funding opportunities that are coming available. So you're going to go straight to the source, no hearsay. This is where you would need to go for those funding sources. So Department of Agriculture Markets would be our state side resource for finding grants. Then we're going to have any county or municipal micro enterprise programs. If your county or your city township has those micro enterprise support programs, those might be accessible to your farm depending on the number of workers or employees that you have in your farm. So there are different eligibility requirements for those, but that would be a good place to check with your county economic development center or your industrial development agency. Might have something. There was even a county that had an agritourism grant. It was a small grant, but some counties do. So that would be a really good place to check for that. And I don't know if it would cover parking lots, but it might. Each of our state is divided into a number of regional economic development centers that also have some funding for major economic development projects that are occurring in those development regions. So that the REDCs would be another place to look because agricultural workforce development is a statewide priority for economic development. So, so if you have a project where you're really you want to develop your workforce in agriculture, your REDC would be a good place to talk to about that. There are also some nonprofit organizations, like private nonprofit organizations that are not related to the state or federal, that also they offer grants or fellowships. They're usually tend to be small, like a $5,000, $10,000 grant, such as the Farmer Veteran Coalition. They have a fellowship program. It's on a rolling basis, so you would need to check for that deadline. So if you meet the eligibility requirements for those nonprofit organizations, then you can certainly apply to those. So that's another place to look for grants. And then trade associations. Trade associations, like if you're part of the Maple Syrup Association or the Apple Association or Organic Farming Association, sometimes they have promotional funding opportunities. Grown and certified, New York State grown and certified, that would be for New York State agriculture markets, but your trade associations would be a great place to look for any funding opportunities that are out and open. So like I said, a tip, sign up for those email newsletters and they will be able to get the information to you about what grants are available. All right. Any more questions about that slide, Jenny, or are we all good?
We do have a question regarding, well, this person is a farmer who has been using hand tools, human labor, but would like to be able to expand with some equipment. And so any of these that we've gone through, would equipment investments fall under these?
These, they might, they might. It depends on where you are. Like I can't speak for the whole state necessarily. USDA right now, I can't think of any that will do equipment. Um, the Northeast Dairy Economic Development Centers have one for workforce development that's currently out. But that would be for workforce development. Your micro enterprise, so your county micro enterprise program, if you have one in your county, that does cover equipment. So that might be a good place to start looking.
This
And
person, they
then
said they're in Genesee County.
So yeah, so you can check with Genesee County to see if they have that. I would go directly to your source. Not taking my word for it, just going directly to your source in your county for that to see if you have that micro enterprise program, because that they do cover equipment. Good question.
Right. Oh, and we have one of the advisors from the Agriculture Committee on, who just said New York State Ag and Markets just completed the dairy modernization grant that focused on equipment for dairies. So that is
Yeah.
one that does
Yes.
take place.
So we did have, yeah, if we want to get into the specifics. So yes, there were 3 grants available in the last 6 months that did cover equipment. There was one for grown and certified, there was one for dairy, and there was one for general food ecosystem. And so that said, there will be future rounds of some of those grants that might cover equipment. I don't know when those grants will be open. For now, they're saying summer. But grants for ag tend to always come out in our busiest season. I am not sure why that is, farmer friends, but that is the way it goes. So that's why it's really important to be on those email listservs and to check them every once in a while, because nobody's going to alert you as to when those grants are open, and they're usually open for only 30 or maybe 60 days. And once they close, they close. So, yeah, so there might be another grant open around 2 that will be eligible with equipment, but it's not open right now. Yeah, the only one that's open now is the Dairy Modernization Act for workforce development.
Thank you. That's all the
Yeah.
questions right now.
All right. So, so once you get a grant opportunity, you got to evaluate and decide for yourself, is this grant right for your farm at this moment? So the first thing to do is to go ahead and check those eligibility requirements. So you're going to check and see, usually the eligibility requirements are the very first thing on the grant application. So download it or, access it somehow online and go ahead and check those eligibility requirements. And because grants are for very specific topics and items, some things will be covered, some things won't. And so you got to decide right away if you're even eligible for applying for this grant. Right now doesn't mean that you won't ever be eligible, but maybe for right now. So that's the first thing to look at, is check those eligibility requirements. If you have any questions about whether you are eligible or not, you can always ask the grant administrator. It doesn't hurt to ask questions. A lot of them will have webinars introducing the grant and go over specific Q&As at that time. The second thing to check, number 2, the second thing to check are the terms. So figure out what the terms and conditions are for that grant opportunity. This goes for loans too, of course. So grants they will require a proof of funds, that the business, the farm has the funds available in order to complete the project. And then grants are available on a reimbursement basis. So that means that the farmer has to show the proof of funds. Once they're accepted, they have to show the proof of funds at some point, and then they go ahead, they're approved for the project. They will complete the whole project. So the owner is investing their own money into this project or through a bridge loan or something like that. And then they are going to submit receipts and proof of completion of the grant and then be reimbursed for that grant money. So there aren't grants that will pay the money up front before the project is done. And the reason for that is from the grant maker's point of view, is that they typically, this is taxpayer funding, and they need to, it's to prevent fraud, right? It's to prevent people from just getting that grant money up front and then using it not for the intended purpose that the grant was approved for. So you gotta make sure when you're gearing up for applying for a grant, you gotta make sure that your farm is ready to take on that project, and that the grant is right for the farm at this moment. And that usually means having some access to cash reserves in order to front the project. Then there's the actual preparing for the grant writing. This is, like I said, grants tend to always come open right when we're in our busy season, right? Or if you're in dairy, that's all year round, but except for calving season, right? So when you're preparing for grant writing, there's a few things that you can do to get organized so it's not as daunting a project as it could be. So the first thing is to go ahead and find the checklist of required documents. Somewhere within the grant application, there is going to be a checklist of what the grant lender needs to see, needs to have from the applicant for the entire grant package. So get a hold of that checklist and then start gathering those documents. Typically, they're going to want to see some tax records of the business and personal, sometimes both business and personal. They want to just verify some sort of income history with the business, the farm. Sometimes it's 1 year, sometimes it's 3 years. So you got to make sure that you're up to date on your taxes. Then a grant or a lender, if you're going for a commercial loan, FSA loan, farm credit east loan, they're going to want to see some sort of financial projections. So you're showing that you're growing your business in some way, and so they're going to want to see that. That is one of the things that SBDC Advisors helps their clients with, usually the most, is being able to put those financial projections together. But if you use QuickBooks or any kind of bookkeeping software, you can definitely use your previous income statements or cash flow statements to help you build those projections into the future that include your new project. Some grants need environmental reports. If you are moving soil or building something in any way, they're going to want to see some environmental reports. If you are the previous grown and certified grants and the new ones coming up, they're going to want to see your agricultural environmental management plan or AEM plan as well. They have there are 5 tiers to that. So they're going to want to see that. So make sure that you have all the environmental reporting that you need. You can do that ahead of time for sure. Make sure you got all of that. And if you have an AEM plan, make sure you know your tier. Some grants require an additional training or certifications. This will also apply for any FSA loans. They're going to want to look for some sort of training. So you want to make sure that you have that documentation of any trainings that you've taken, and if you got any certificates for it or you've achieved any certification, make sure you have those. So that's something where you can go ahead and gather that information beforehand, make sure you have it handy, because at some point, if you are going to apply for grants, you're going to need it. I had mentioned the county farm ID. This is something that if you are applying for any USDA related grants, they're going to want to see that your farm is already has an identification number in the system, in the USDA system. So that just requires you to go to your nearest USDA office and get registered, get a farm ID. Some grants, if it is federal money in any way that is either gone through the state or the county, it's still federal taxpayer money. And so they need to be able to track that. And so you would need what's called a universal ID number. It is free. There are a lot of scammy sites out there that will try to charge you for it. Don't pay attention to any of those. And you want to go to get your universal ID at sam.gov. Now, word of caution: I wouldn't go ahead and get your SAM ID number unless you are right now applying for a grant that requires it. Don't do it until you require it, because it puts your contact information out in the public, and you will start to get a lot of spam calls, which none of us have time for. So I wouldn't do that until you are ready for it. This SAM ID number, it replaced the Dun and Bradstreet number a few years ago. So if any of you remember that. And then this is kind of the number one place to start. Actually, I don't know why it's at the end of my list, but here we go. Project quotes and estimates. So any grant is going to want a very specific list of items. I mean, they want a picture of the shopping cart, right? This is the exact item, and this is exactly how much it costs. So if you have a project like the example with, they want to upgrade to pieces of equipment, right, for labor saving. If you have a project like that, where it's a really specific piece of equipment, then absolutely get that quote, get that estimate now, so that you have that handy for applying for the grant. So no grant will accept an application without some verification of what the grant is being used for. So the grant uses. And then, yes, I highly recommend doing this at a desk, not necessarily on your tree. So keeping everything organized.
We do have a few
oh yeah,
questions on that
oh
previous
yeah,
slide, if we
let's go for
can
it. Oh, do
grab.
we need to go back? Yeah, got it.
Yeah, so let's see, this person wrote, where do I get started with AEN plan?
AEM, you're going to go to your USDA office for that.
Okay. And then what documents are typically needed when you go in to get your county farm ID?
Oh, that's a good question. Call your county USDA office before you go in and ask them what you might need. You're probably going to need your business certificate, I'm assuming, or your EIN number. So your DBA, if you have a sole proprietorship or a DBA, it would be a copy of that. If you have a corporation like an LLC, you probably need I know that you need your EIN number. But if there's anything else that you need for verification, call them and see, double check.
Thank you.
Great questions, guys. I'm so glad that you're asking. These are really good, detailed questions. So I'm happy to answer them. Okay. So when you are getting ready to sit down and actually write this thing, we're carrying on that discussion from the last slide. What does your farm really need to purchase? So this is where you're going to do a little bit of soul searching and figure out not what you'd like to have, but what you would really need to purchase in order to complete this project as it aligns with the grant. So again, check back to those eligibility requirements, really study them, see what the uses are for that grant, that particular grant, and what is not eligible. Then you're going to want to develop your project description and a budget that's exact. Um, Great question to start with. Does the grant require a match? Some grants are, they're going to split 50-50. So you're going to complete the project and then the grant will reimburse you 50% of that project. Sometimes it's 10%, sometimes it's just 5% of a match that's required. So make sure you know what that match requirement is before you start with that. Again, usually grants are not going to cover general operating expenses or any debt repayment. So it helps to be realistic in what you're asking for. And again, check those grant uses, like I said. Some grants are going to require a full business plan. Again, that's something that your advisor or your mentor can help you do. There are, several support organizations that will help you create a business plan, to write a business plan that are free and confidential. So you do not have to spend a lot of money hiring a grant writer or a business consultant to help you write your business. You're welcome to do that if you would like, but you don't necessarily have to. There are resources and organizations out there that will help you put together an amazingly good plan with that are at no cost. So if you're lucky enough that your grant requires an entire written business plan, lucky you, you get to write one. Or some grants will just require a business profile. So it might not be a huge multi-page business plan, but you still need to be able to describe your business in detail, how it operates, how you manage the money, and what your marketing is. So how you are attracting and keeping customers with your farm. So start as early as possible. The toughest grant grant work is when people don't allow themselves enough time in order to sit down, really write a draft, come back to it and revise it, and really make it really nice and tight. So I always say, find the deadline for the grant and make your deadline 1 week earlier. This also helps with any technical issues that happen. These grant organizations are, they're not tech companies, right? So if everybody is applying and trying to upload their grants on the last day, I have seen websites go down because they just can't handle it. And then people end up missing a deadline. So just go ahead and say 1 week before is your deadline. So you can get that in and make sure that you are worry-free. And like I said, reach out to support organizations that can help you, assist you, walk you through the business plan writing and the actual grant writing too. So, any questions there?
So we did have a question that I know you're going to love to answer, which is, what organization would help with the business plan locally?
Oh, well, so glad that you asked. So definitely your small business development center, your nearest office can help you develop a plan. I personally, I am partial to the small business development plan. I've written a lot of business plans over my life, over my course of our farming career. And I really like our SBDC one because it is nuts and bolts. It is focusing on what a lender wants. There's also FarmNet can help you write one. CADE can help. There is a course on Cornell Small Farms program has an online course that walks you through step by step your business plan. That one is great. It's like a 6 or 8 week course. That one is great if you are just starting out and you are really thinking about the vision of your farm as well. So I've written a lot of business plans over my career, and I really like our SBDC one for lending purposes because it is just nuts and bolts. This is what a lender needs to know. So, yeah. But
Okay,
yeah,
and I dropped
definitely.
a link if anyone would like to sign up for services with their local SBDC. You can use
Oh,
that link to do
wonderful.
so, and then the SBDC Center will get in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. And you can definitely utilize multiple support organizations for sure. When we were starting our farm, let me tell you, we needed a lot of help. And so we had an SBDC advisor, we had a FarmNet mentor, we attended trainings, we did courses. So you need a lot of support if you're starting a farm or growing a farm. So keep that professional network growing, utilize those resources that are out there, especially the no cost ones, because you get a lot of that professional expertise that you need, while you're making those decisions. So great questions. All right, submitting the application. Whew, it was a lot of work. I hear that 100% of the time from clients. Whoa, that was a lot more work than I thought it was. Yeah, they like to ask a lot of questions. Um, Usually grants are competitive. So they're evaluating your application against 300 other applications that they get for a pot of money, right? A pot of funds. So yeah, they're going to ask as many questions as that they need in the application in order to be able to make those decisions as best as they can, as fairly as they can, right? So yeah, it's a lot of work. Again, start early. Start as soon as the grant opens. And so that it's not as much work and scramble at the end. Double check everything. Double check everything. Before you hit submit, go through, read everything, make sure you've answered all the questions, make sure you've provided all the information and the documents that they need in order to make their grant decision. Check the deadline and the way to submit, of course, before it's due, and then make a copy of everything before you send it. So grants tend to have a lag time. You're going to hurry up and submit, and then you're not going to hear anything for, I mean, the fastest is a month, but typically it's like 3 or 4 months, right? So before the grant lenders can sort through all the applications and decide who's going to be awarded the grant. So make a copy of everything. Some grants require a site visit. Some require an interview. And if it's been a few weeks or months between the time you submitted and the next check-in, you want to have all of that information in front of you in order to say, oh yeah, this is what I was talking about. So make a copy of everything. Also, it's easier to have it all in one place so that if there's a grant that you're going the next time, then you have it all there. So make a copy. And yes, it's going to look like this picture. So managing your grant. Yay, you won a grant. Congratulations. First thing to do, I didn't put this in here. You're probably going to meet with the grant lenders and you're going to sign a commitment letter or an award letter, just saying that you understand the commitments of this grant program and you're willing to take the risks of it, right? So that's going to be the first thing. Then the second is that right away, if your grant requires reporting deadlines, like a SARE grant or any of the Ag and Markets grants that are going to come out, they're going to require some reporting deadlines. Put those into your calendar, right? Go ahead and put them in there right away so that you know if it's quarterly or mid project or something like that, you know when that's going to be. Then track your project purchases. Like I said, grants are at a reimbursement basis. So you will not get a payout until grant is completed, the project is completed. And so you need to be able to keep all of those receipts organized and in a place. A lot of times what happens is that a price will change on something from the time you submit it to the time you actually, submit the receipts. So you need to be able to make sure that you're tracking, within your grant categories, you're tracking those expenses, make sure that you've purchased everything that you said you were going to purchase in the grant. And then finally, go ahead and submit those receipts. As soon as you get everything, completed, that is going to be your time. Make a copy of it and go ahead and submit those receipts so that that can get started processing. It's not quick. It is not a really quick reimbursement. They got to go double check everything. Sometimes they got to do a site visit, make sure that everything's in place that you said, like for NRCS, they will. And then it's going to be a lag time, especially if it's federal or state funding, right? It does not move fast because it's not like anybody has that money actually sitting in their, in their bank account or any of the organizations. So it's going to take another 3-4 weeks. Talk to the grant organization to see how long it's going to take to get reimbursed. And be so that you can manage your cash flow around that. You're not waiting for an immediate payout that is just not going to happen. There's something that came up. Sometimes the grants are called deferred loans as well. So just it's the nature of the way the money is being organized. The funds are being organized. And then my big tip is if something is not working, if you are getting waylaid with your project or there's a big hiccup, communicate with your funders. You got to tell them way ahead of time. You got to tell them that, hey, heads up, this is happening and this is what we're working on right now. And you'll see, this is my story about this. This is a picture of me and my husband in 2018, way back in 2018, 2019, in 2018, we applied for, the state had a beginning farmer grant. And we applied for it and we were awarded it. It was great. We didn't get it until we weren't awarded until 2019. We were going along. It was like the end of 2019, going along, got everything. And one of the things was a tractor. So we went ahead and purchased the tractor that we were going to do. By this time, it was beginning of 2020. So lo and behold, the pandemic hit and everything shut down. Our tractor was in a warehouse in Iowa, and we could not get that tractor to our farm. Like I said, grants are at a reimbursement basis only, and the state required photographic evidence of the grant project on the farm. So we didn't have the tractor on our farm. So we really, the first things we did when this was all unraveling and we realized, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to get this tractor to our farm. We communicated with our grant point person. We told them what was happening. We told them the story. And that helped them too, because otherwise, if we weren't done with our grant during the grant period, right, they weren't liable for reimbursing us for our project. So when we were able to communicate with them, heads up, this is what's happening, what can we do? We were able to work together and be able to get the reimbursement. Luckily, there was a miracle and we were able to get the tractor to the farm from Iowa. But our lender was, the state was being willing to work with us with purchase receipts and stuff. We didn't end up needing it, but certainly we wouldn't have gotten that far if we hadn't just regularly communicated with the state about that. So if something's going on, project's going sideways for whatever reason, communicate with your funders, please. They want to support farms. They want to support agribusinesses. So they will work with you within their means. So manage that grant. Be on top of it. All right. Okay. We are coming down in here of our slides. So tips for success. These are just a few tips that we've learned over the years working with different clients who have been awarded grants and working on grants ourselves. So start small. Pilot your project. That usually helps, especially, if you are grant funders do not want to see a brand new, a business or a farm that is asking for a ton of money right off the start without anything to show that they've tried this, that this proof of concept works, that they have some part of their business, their farm business already going. So start small, pilot your project, and then you can apply for, a smaller grant and then a larger grant. The USDA Value Added Producers Grant is a really good example of that. They have two tiers. They have a planning grant and an implementation grant. So you can apply for a planning grant that will help you kind of figure out if this project has feasibility. And then if it does, you can apply for the next round with the implementation grant for your value added product that will help you implement that project. So a number of grants that most recently came out had tiers. They had a lesser dollar amount tier and then a larger dollar amount tier. So start small if you're just starting with grants. Get feedback on your application. Like I said, go run it past somebody, at SBDC, your advisor, your mentor. Get some feedback on your application before you submit it. You can't double dip funds. This is a big no-no. So that means that you cannot use more than one grant to get reimbursed for the same item. That's a big no-no. It's called double dipping. So what you can do though, is if you have a project that's, a more extensive project, you can use multiple grant sources in order to fund different parts of those projects. And an advisor can help you do that. Mentor, your professional network can help you figure out how to structure your project to do that. And definitely stay organized. Just like when you're farming and running your farm business, staying organized with the writing, applying, and reporting phases of your grant are just going to help you. They're going to lessen that stress and make sure everything gets done on time. So there are a number of resources. I already talked about subscribing to email listservs, but there are a number of resources that help. The grant organizations, like if you are signing up for any of those listservs, they will definitely they will announce when they're having learning sessions about grants. USDA will do it, and Ag Markets will do it. So that's where the grant, if there's a grant coming out, they will absolutely announce, hey, heads up, this grant's coming out. We're going to spend an hour and a half talking about it. Attending those learning sessions and webinars is great for getting your specific questions about that grant opportunity answered. Those webinars are typically saved. So you can go to the website and review any webinars that had happened in the past. Resources, like I said, trade associations, any agriculture or farm support organizations that we have in our huge ecosystem. So, contacting your county Cornell Cooperative Extension Office, or your Cornell team, if they have a grape team, the vegetable team, horticulture team, tree fruit tree team, you name it. Speaking with them, any of those support organizations, like I said, would be able to help you. And resources, if you hear of a grant, check directly with that department or that program. Give them a call, send them an email, and see if that grant is currently open or not. We've had, especially at USDA, there have been a number of programs that have been frozen for review, or they've been canceled or eliminated recently. So if you hear of something or you're still not sure, then definitely go ahead and check with the department itself to see. And you can do that through your county, your local county USDA office, in order to see exactly if they're still frozen or if they are accepting applications. And thank you so much for listening. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. You are welcome to reach out to me. I have my email there. And again, this is our state site down here too. So you got that. You can check us out in your area. So thanks.
Yeah, we did have someone make a comment that they've applied for multiple grants and they keep a separate file for each grant. And they've
Ooh,
actually been able to copy and paste many responses on applications, for other applications, similar questions. So
fantastic. Especially that. That is great to hear. I'm so glad that's a best practice for anything, especially like your business profile. Once you get that business description down, you could just copy and paste that, right? So great, great. Totally saves.
absolutely. There have been thank yous coming in as well.
Oh, you're
All
welcome. You're
right.
welcome.
We'll wait just a moment here to see if there are any last minute questions. Maureen, was there anything that you wanted to add today?
No, no, I think Bree did an awesome job and covered a lot of stuff. And some great questions.
Yeah. Thank you guys for these questions. That just, um, yeah, makes it feel great.
Okay, we did have a question just come in. Somebody who would like, if you could just give some examples of fundable projects that you know have won
Mm.
grants.
Oh, fundable projects that have won grants. Okay, so well, it totally depends on the grant. um, but um, anything that's creating jobs, anything that is energy saving, that might be applicable for like our Rural Energy and Assistance Program, a REAP grant, is energy saving. Like I said, there's a dairy workforce development grant right now that's all about training and keeping workforce. I know that some veteran grants are typically around training as well. Let's see if it's a promotion grant. So it's hard to say because there have been a number of USDA programs that have been frozen or eliminated. So there used to be a local food promotion program that was all about promoting for local. Oh, Grown and Certified. So New York State Grown and Certified does have a promotion grant for Grown and Certified farms. It's like a $10,000 grant for advertising and promotion. Value added producers grant is anything post harvest. So that tends to be like bottling, packaging, labeling, website development, anything that is post harvest. Those micro enterprise grant programs that I spoke about at your county level or your regional level, those tend to be around job creation and also equipment purchase, inventory purchase. So it really depends on the type. And then, sorry, totally forgot about NRCS. So anything that's NRCS has to do with conservation of your land and natural resources. So we were talking about pastures, fencing, hedgerows, riparian areas. Yeah. Cornell sometimes sorry, I'm going to go on and on. Okay, so sometimes like your Cornell regional team might partner with a farm to do trialing. So, you know, the seeds and plants would be that you're trialing, those would be a winning grant, right? That you would work with your Cornell extension agent with. SARE grants, so that's your Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education grants. Those are on a rolling basis, and you need to partner with a researcher. So your farm needs to partner with a researcher with those. Those tend to encompass quite a lot for reimbursement. It just depends on the scope of the project. So you could check those out if you're looking for that. So sorry, that was not a specific answer to that question, but it just means that it really depends on the grant.
Right. And that's something that somebody can always work with someone from the SBDC on, correct? If they're wanting to know if their particular project that they have in mind, if there's something that might match it.
Yes, that is a great short answer to that question.
Well, we'll just throw that in there as,
We're just gonna throw that in
another
there.
option as well. So I do want to just, if anybody needs to drop off here, we have a survey that will show up. If you have a few minutes to give us feedback, we love hearing from people and knowing how today went and what else we can do to assist you educationally with your small business, and particularly your agricultural small business, since that is what we are talking about today. Bree, we had a couple more questions come in, and I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have time to answer them?
Oh, I'm happy to.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. All right. So is there any central database for New York State grants as a centralized way to stay updated on these opportunities?
Yeah, the CFA, consolidated funding. Help me out. I forgot what the A stands for.
Application.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So there's the CFA. But no, that would only cover anything that happens through the state. But certainly there's no database that covers all the grants, out there. Wouldn't that be wonderful? No.
Yeah, it would be.
It would be great. It would be so easy. Yeah, so I really try hard to keep my eyes and ears open for everything available for farms. So yeah, so I really try to just I actually read all of those emails, those listservs and everything, so that I can know what's up, what's coming down the pike. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so that's another service that our SBDC advisors who are agricultural specialists provide, is just that they do try to stay up to date as much as possible on all these different opportunities, of which there are many places to go find them.
Many,
So
yeah. For ag, if you go to the New York State Ag and Markets site, they have a tab up there for funding opportunities, and it will list all of those opportunities that are ag related through the state.
so this is the last question that came in, and we will definitely stop after this one. Does being a new, being under 3 years farmer versus an established farmer matter when you apply for grants? Would either status hinder or help you?
That's a great question. Yeah, we didn't talk about that. So eligibility. I've only seen 2 beginning farmer grants open in New York State over the last 14 years. One was, like I said, in 2018, and one was just recently, it just closed. And those were all, it was any farmer with less than 10 years of ownership. So So yeah, that 10-year, magic 10-year mark. If you are looking at USDA Farm Service Agency, so FSA loans, they tend to want to see 3 years of farm records. So they want to see you growing for at least 3 years and you have harvest records and sales records for that 3 years. So not necessarily grant, more loan oriented, but yeah, that's kind of where that 3-year mark comes in, is because USDA wants to see it.
All right. Well, we will stop there. Thank you so much, Bree and Maureen, for being with us today. This was just packed with great information for people starting to or applying for already grants to hopefully be as successful as possible. All right. Please do remember that survey if you have a few minutes. We appreciate it. And everybody have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care.